Israel. A while back, CNN had an investigation about a Palestinian detention center in Israel. And I covered that story. And I was shocked that CNN actually went there to investigate it. And they said that Palestinian detainees were being tortured at that detention center. So this is going back, but now we're jumping forward to more recent allegations. Since then, there have been claims that Palestinian detainees have been sexually assaulted at that detention center. And now there was a video that was broadcast, and I'm not going to show that video. Obviously, I cannot show that on here, but it's on social media if you want to see it. But there was a video that was broadcast showing an IDF soldier sexually assaulting a Palestinian detainee, and it was broadcast on TV. And this is not something that I can make up. This is very disgusting. And what kills me is that when State Department officials have been confronted about this particular incident, the response is, at least from Matt Miller, the response is, well, that should not happen. And we push for the IDF to investigate it. Right. The IDF is supposed to investigate their own people. We really expect that. That's like asking a police department to investigate their own police department for a police brutality case. Does not make any sense. Now, Hotspot, they've been doing the damn thing on Twitter. They really have been killing it. We're going to start off with the video. Again, like I said, I'm not going to show this full video. But what you will see here, newly released footage shows the most moral IDF using shields while sexually assaulting a Palestinian at a team in torture camp. He was found hospitalized with injuries, including a torn rectum, broken ribs, and ruptured bowels. Accusation equals projection. And yes, because remember, it is always Israel accusing Hamas and Palestinian civilians of committing sexual assault. But when you look at evidence, there was no evidence that that happened on October 7th, even though Dana Bash and a lot of pundits in corporate media would have you think otherwise. Kamala Harris herself hosted an event at the White House to talk about that supposed incident, even though there was no evidence otherwise. As it stands right now, Kamala Harris nor Donald Trump have spoken about this particular incident, which shows there is evidence. So the Palestinian detention center here, let me pause. Again, I'm not going to show the entire video. You can see the detainees are here. They are laying on the ground. And you'll see where they come in.
הנה כאן קבוצה של חיילי המילואים מכוח 100, יחידה משמשת להבטחת המתקן.
So you can see this is where they pick up one of the detainees and they start to take him away from the others. And remember, one of the things that was revealed in that CNN investigation is that oftentimes they are blindfolded, right? They use psychological torture as well, not just physical torture. But again, obviously, there's cameras. So here they are at the entrance of the facility. And we'll stop here because, like I said, I'm not going to show it. But what you see here is the soldiers holding up their shields so you can't see what's happening to that prisoner. And I haven't heard one word from Dana Bash or Jake Tapper. And in particular, let's focus on Dana Bash because she was the one that continued to say that Israelis were sexually assaulted on October 7th with no evidence. Here you have video footage And none of them are talking about it. You know why? Because it's happening to a Palestinian, and it's an Israeli that is doing it. To make matters worse, let me just pause here for a second because I want to make sure I start this from the beginning. To make matters worse, here you have that soldier who assaulted the Palestinian prisoner, brought onto an Israeli news network. So they don't bring on the victim, they bring on the perpetrator. Let's get into this.
וערב טוב למם, לוחם בכוח 100, שנעצר בפרשה עם המחבל הנוח'בה, יימח שמו. שלום, תודה שבאת לפטריוטים.
שלום, ערב טוב.
מה שלומך?
ברוך השם.
So this is the perpetrator, and you'll notice that he's wearing a mask. Notice that he's wearing a mask. Now, let me ask you a question, ladies and gentlemen. If he's innocent, why is he covering up his face? Why? The audience is clapping. They're clapping for this guy. How insane is this? But I'm going to show you his face in a minute. Watch this.
כמה זמן היית עצור?
יומיים וחצי.
ולמה שחררו אותך?
כי הבינו אין סיכוי שאני עשיתי דבר כזה.
מה הסיפור, תגיד לי? מה קרה?
אין פה סיפור.
מה?
יש פה סיפור מולבש. יש פשוט תיק שתופרים לנו. ואני נמצא פה בוש ונכלם, כאוב ודאב לב, אחרי שהחלטתי להסיר את הכפפות ולהגיע לכאן, בלי לשאול הרבה שאלות, אחרי שאישה פונה אליי ברחוב, ואומרת לי, אתה האנס של המחבל? עד לפה. אנחנו לא אנסים. אנחנו חיילי צה"ל, לא אנסים. ושאף אחד לא ינסה לצייר אותה.
So he's saying we will not sexually assault and no one will try to paint us as that way. I wouldn't even say it's people painting you that way. It's video footage. There's actual evidence. So this is what I've been saying over and over again. Every accusation that they have towards Hamas is a confession. This is what they're doing. And corporate media, all these, by the way, they're all in on it. The commentators for corporate media, the State Department spokesman, Matt Miller, and that other guy that kind of looks like Sagar, they're all in on it, along with the President of the United States, along with the Vice President of the United States. Donald Trump isn't talking about this either. They're all in on it. Because our government belongs to the Israeli lobby.
אנחנו אנסים. ואת המעשה הזה שנעשה פה אתמול עם הכתבת טלוויזיה הזאת, הערוכה והמגמתית, עם ישראל תקשיבו לי, אין סיכוי בעולם שאנחנו אנסנו או עשינו מעשה של אינוס.
So here he is saying there's no one in the world that we would do this to. Yet you actually have, don't forget, it was just about a week or so ago where there were people protesting in Israel for the right to sexually abuse Palestinian people. I can't make this up. And this is why, like, when people say you have to have some sympathy for Israel, I have no sympathy for Israel. Zero. I've never seen anything like this before in my life. It is not just Netanyahu. And this is what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and Donald Trump, this is what they would have you believe. They would have you believe that, oh, the problem is just Netanyahu. It's not. It's an entire ideology. Zionism is a problem. Look at the way they treat these people.
אני אבא ל5 ילדים, יש איתנו אבא ל7 ילדים, 5 ילדים, 3 ילדים. עזבנו את הכל להתעסק בתינופת. התת מיץ זבל, אני לא רוצה להגיד אפילו אדם. עם הריח המסריח שעולה מהם. אחרי שאני רואה את הכתבה הזאת שהיא ערוכה, תמונה ממכלאה כזאת, תמונה ממכלאה כזאת, תמונה ממכלאה כזאת, ואתה בא, מצייר פה תמונה כל כך עגומה.
So now he's blaming the press and he's saying they take dark pictures of the IDF soldiers. No, they take what you give them, right? They show what you give them. This is all I'm trying to explain this to people as clearly as I can. I don't want to hear about whether or not he has kids. Just because you have kids doesn't mean that you're not an abuser. But what the behavior that you put out, that's what the press takes. They take what you give them.
על חיילי צה"ל ומוציא, אני לא יודע איך להסביר את זה בכלל. אני בוש ונכלם, כל העולם, ראיתם אתמול אוסף של סרטונים. אגב, תדעו, כל המחבלים שאנחנו לוקחים אותם לחיפוש, אנחנו עומדים ככה עם המגנים בצורה כזאת, זה הנוהל שלנו, זה ההגנה שלנו מפניהם, שהם לא יראו אותם, שהוא לא יראה, שיהיה בצורה כזאת מוגנת. זה לכולם אנחנו עושים את זה.
למה?
ככה זה הנוהל. ככה אני נכנסתי, אני 5 חודשים בנוהל. אני בחור...
אתה זוכר את האירוע הזה שראינו בכתבה הזאת?
באמת שלא, כי זה נכנס לי בתוך מאות של חיפושים. יש חיפושים שנעשים 3 דקות, ויש חיפושים שנעשים 10 דקות.
כלומר, אין לך מושג בכלל על מה מדובר?
לא, פשוט אין לי מושג. זה פשוט שקר שהלבישו עלינו בשביל לרחוץ בנו את הסכין, בשביל...
So he's trying to say that it's just a lie in order to present us to the world that he is a predator, and he's saying that he's not. No, video footage isn't lying. The video was right there. And I just can't, I can't, if you are innocent, why are you hiding your face? Why are you wearing a mask if you have nothing to hide? I want to show you something else too, because this is one of those things where I've said before. So shout out to Mint Press News here, because they got it right here. This is who the accused is, because on this show, the masks are coming off on this show. Israeli reservist Mir bin Shadrit, who sodomized Palestinians, immediately released and applauded. You see what I mean? They're not held accountable. So they released this guy. And the reason why the IDF behaves the way that they behave and they treat the Palestinians the way that they do is because they know there's no accountability. How can there be accountability when the United States government is telling Israel we have unwavering support for them? How can there be any accountability when you don't have one politician right now in DC that will actually condemn Israel? And you don't condemn Israel just by saying there should be a ceasefire. That's not condemning it. Even AOC, she couldn't even she sold out. They got her to do this webinar, an anti-Semitic, a webinar against anti-Semitism where she conflated anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. That's why DSA withdrew their endorsement for her. So this hold that the Israeli lobby has on the US government, this is a major problem. And I want to be very clear about something, folks. Again, Kamala Harris, I don't see her hosting an event at the White House for Palestinian Americans to talk about this. And there's evidence. But look at what she was willing to go through for Israeli Americans to make them feel comfortable and make them feel safe. I don't see her doing that for Palestinian Americans. So miss me with the whole, well, she's a black woman. She's a woman of color. Of course, she's going to look out for people who are marginalized. No, she's not. And I've already told you on the show how her policies have affected the black community. A lot of these people, they all belong to the Israeli lobby. Whether it's Richie Torres, whether it's her, whether it's Hakeem Jeffries, whether it's Donald Trump, they're all sold out to the Israeli lobby. This is why they continue to defend and support Israel. So I don't understand how anyone at this point can support this administration or Kamala Harris, her run for 2024. I don't understand how you can support any of these people, because this is not going to change. I want to be very clear here about something, folks. As long as AIPAC owns our politicians, this is not going to change. This is why they do this thing where they kind of walk in between, Kamala Harris, she's real slick about this. Trump's more overt about it. Kamala's a little slick about it. So what she'll do is she'll say, we need a ceasefire, then pause and say, at least for 6 weeks. Or she'll say, we need a ceasefire, but then she'll also say, Israel has a right to defend itself. And I want to tell you what that means, folks. If somebody tells you, if a politician in the US tells you that Israel has a right to defend itself and we need a ceasefire, those two statements don't go together. Because if they're telling you that Israel has a right to defend itself, that means the US government is going to continue to send them weapons. And if you're sending them weapons, they're going to use them, which means there is not going to be a ceasefire. This is common sense. But for some reason, I'm noticing a lot of Kamala stands online are not putting two and two together. That's right, James. It's called doublespeak. Exactly. If I'm telling you that there needs to be a ceasefire, but at the same time, I'm saying Israel has a right to defend itself, that means there won't be a ceasefire. You're still giving them weapons. The US gives them the most weapons. And Kamala is going to continue that too. So I want you to think about that when you go to the polls in November. I want you to think about that. The people are like, well, Kamala says, she's not going to be as harsh, or there's a chance that we can push her left. No, you're not. How are you going to push left a politician that takes over $5 million from AIPAC? You really think that Kamala Harris is going to stop giving weapons to Israel? You have lost your damn mind. And some of the commentators, by the way, some of these so-called left commentators that came from the Bernie movement that are now trying to convince you that Kamala is going to do the right thing on that issue and is not going to give them the weapons. These people are just trying to grow their brand and make more money. They're not telling you the truth. They're not being honest with you. And I'll show you an example right here. Notice Trump and Kamala will say Israel has a right to defend itself when the conversation centers around Gaza. They don't mention the West Bank human rights violations because they can't use that statement. As long as AIPAC controls politicians, this won't change. Vote third party. And this came out today. The U.S. won't sanction the IDF unit for human rights violations in the West Bank. Notice that you don't really hear them mention the West Bank. It's always Gaza. This is why I want you to remember, don't forget about the West Bank. Because you see, when it comes to the West Bank, politicians can't say, well, Israel has a right to defend itself, because that's not where the conflict is. That's not where the war is. The war is in Gaza and Lebanon. And technically we could say because they struck Iran as well, and Syria. But the bombing is taking place in Gaza. What's happening in the West Bank is you have Israeli settlers that are armed, that are going to Palestinian homes and kicking these people out of their homes, turning off their water. That's not Israel defending itself. I want you to think about something here for just a second. Imagine if you're just chilling at your house and you're just chilling in the living room watching TV, and 4 people come to your house and start sitting on your front lawn. The next day, when you wake up, there's another group of people that have decided to sit in your backyard. So now you have people sitting on in your front yard and your backyard. And you can't tell them to leave. You can't do anything because you don't really have rights. These are squatters. That happens in the West Bank. Now picture this. The next day you wake up and you have to go to work. In fact, you and everyone in your house has to go to work. So everybody leaves in the morning to go to work. And when you return from work, when you come back to your home, the people who were sitting in the front yard and the people in the backyard, they have now moved into your house. They have changed the locks on the door and you can't get in. Now imagine there's nothing you can do about it. That's what's happening in the West Bank. I bet you would feel some kind of way if that happened to you, right? Nowhere in the world people should be treated like this. I've never, and I got to tell you, in 2024, for people to be treated in such an inhumane way. And you'll see when I get to the Kamala Harris story, because I have some things to say about the event that she had in Michigan and the response that she gave to those protesters. I want to tell you guys something that I don't think I've ever mentioned to you guys. I saw Kamala Harris speak in person many years ago. Kamala Harris has a script. The same mannerisms that she had then years ago, the same type of rhetoric that she had, same statements, is the same thing she's doing now. It's fake. I have to check on my Facebook page, see if I still have those pictures, because I'm gonna show you. I saw her speak years ago. She's a con. We've already been conned. We were conned by Barack Obama when people tried to convince you that he was going to be the next best thing, hope and change. And now you have Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris isn't going to change this. Not when you're taking $5 million from AIPAC. Kamala Harris isn't going to change this. Not when you're taking $5 million from AIPAC. So I'm not here to make you feel sad. I'm not here to bring you down. I'm just here to tell you the damn truth. And honestly, if more people were honest with you guys, we would actually have a bigger party movement in this country. But because some people, they're more focused with getting people on their shows, getting Democrat politicians to come onto their show and making their show bigger and getting more subscribers and making more money, they're going to lie to you. And the way that I've seen people lie to their audience about how Kamala feels about this issue, it is absolutely disgusting. And I have receipts tonight, and we're going to show them. No one should be treated that way. And Miko Palid sums this up very well. He has tried to explain to people he is Israeli. His dad was a part of the IDF. He's been on the show multiple times. He is an activist in support for the Palestinian people. He sums this up so well, and people really got to get this. This is not just about Netanyahu. Listen.
There is no good Zionism. It's a racist ideology. It's a violent ideology. And don't believe me, look at Palestine the last 100 years. That's Israel. There is no other one. When Israel massacres thousands of people in Gaza, Israelis can stop it immediately. You can have 100,000 Israelis on the streets. Nobody will get shot. Where are they? Where are these Israelis? When did they ever come out? I mean, many. I don't mean 10 in Sheikh Jarrah. Everybody knows what happens when you drop a 1-ton bomb in a residential neighborhood. You don't have to be a genius. You know people will die. Israel is a democracy for Jews. And who do they vote for? The same people over and over and over again. Doesn't matter if it's Gantz or Netanyahu. There is nothing to justify, nothing to excuse what Israel does. Nothing to excuse what the Zionists have been doing in Palestine for 100 years. Nothing. When they bomb Gaza, you can hear it in Tel Aviv.
This is very important for people to understand. There is no good Zionism. It is a racist ideology. And that is coming from an Israeli himself who has seen it all. Now, I was thinking about this the other day when I first saw that video. And every time I see these videos where settlers are stealing Palestinians' homes in the West Bank, and they are going forward with this expansion, by the way, which means more people will be displaced. Everybody see how this works? When we talk about migration, this means more people will be displaced. They will become refugees. I don't know where they will go because Gaza is through. But it reminded me, I remember seeing the photos and the videos of when my grandparents and great grandparents had to deal with burning crosses in their front yard, had to deal with people telling them, get out of the neighborhood, leave, even though it's a Black neighborhood. This country never really healed or learned. We had apartheid in this country. What do you think Jim Crow was? What do you think Jim Crow laws were? That was apartheid. Separate schools for different races. Think about I'm thinking about that economically for a second. Do you really think it's cost effective to have separate schools, separate churches, all this? This country never really healed from that, and apparently didn't really learn that much from that either. And I don't want you to sit here and think that just because, we had a Black president, that does not mean that we didn't learn and grow from that. What we had was someone, Barack Obama, who was basically just another state puppet to do the bidding of the Western Empire. And you notice he didn't do anything for Black people either. And you think Kamala Harris is going to? She won't even admit that it's a genocide. She said we need a ceasefire. She's saying this is a genocide? No. Everyone needs to wake up. I'll say it again. There is no one person that is coming to save you. And all these pundits and talking heads that have you believing that one person is going to come in and they're going to fix everything. I heard this when it was Barack Obama. I heard this when it was Joe Biden. I heard this when it was Bill Clinton. I heard this every freaking time. And you would think the American people would have learned that lesson by now. We got to pay attention to how the media has moved away from this particular issue. Notice corporate media is not covering Israel and Gaza that much anymore. Did Israel stop killing Palestinian people? No. They stopped talking about it so that the protests would stop and you would forget about it. And then they threw Kamala Harris in front of your face so that now you're distracted with that, along with the Olympics. That's how they trick you. But I didn't stop talking about it. Because what's happening to Palestinians over there, you think Israel's going to stop there? They're not going to stop there. They'll go into Africa next. And we all know the US government really doesn't care about Africa.